Every year, hundreds of millions of people leave their homes. They come for the beaches, cities, food, history and places they've dreamed about their entire lives. But where do they go? And more importantly, which countries attract the most visitors? In 2024, international tourism rebounded to roughly 1.4 billion arrivals worldwide. And hidden inside that enormous number are 12 countries that dominate the world's tourism map. Let's start the countdown. And wait until you see which country is number 1. We begin in Southeast Asia, with a country that has practically mastered the art of tourism: Thailand. In 2024, Thailand welcomed approximately 35.5 million international visitors, a spectacular recovery from the pandemic years. And think about what that number means. That's roughly equivalent to more than 4 times Thailand's population of Bangkok visiting the country in a single year. But Thailand's appeal isn't based on just one attraction. You can land in Bangkok and experience one of Asia's great megacities. Travel north for mountains, temples and traditional culture. Fly south and suddenly you're surrounded by turquoise water and tropical islands. And then there's the food. Pad Thai, Tom Yum, green curry, mango sticky rice. Thailand has effectively turned cuisine into a tourism asset. But perhaps the biggest secret is accessibility. Thailand offers travelers a combination that is difficult to beat. Affordable accommodation, world-class hospitality, dramatic scenery, rich culture, and excellent tourist infrastructure. And that combination keeps bringing visitors back. But Thailand is only number 12. At number 11, we move from tropical beaches to some of the oldest civilizations in Europe. Imagine standing among ruins that are more than 2,000 years old. And then, less than an hour later, watching the sunset over the Aegean Sea. That's Greece. In 2024, Greece attracted approximately 36 million international visitors, putting it just ahead of Thailand. And Greece has one extraordinary advantage. It sells an entire lifestyle. Ancient history, Mediterranean food, islands, beaches, architecture, religion, mythology, and some of the most recognizable landscapes in the world. Athens gives visitors the Acropolis. Santorini provides the postcard image. Mykonos brings nightlife and luxury. Crete combines beaches, mountains and thousands of years of history. And here's the interesting part. Greece isn't simply selling sightseeing. It's selling the idea of the Mediterranean escape. That emotional connection is incredibly valuable in tourism. And Greece isn't slowing down. Its international arrivals increased by around 10% in 2024 compared with 2023. But now we leave the Mediterranean and head to a country where history meets some of the world's most advanced technology. Japan is one of the most fascinating entries on this list. Because for decades, Japan was already famous. But it wasn't necessarily attracting tourists on the scale we see today. Then came a remarkable rebound. In 2024, Japan welcomed approximately 36.9 million international visitors, up dramatically from 2023. And what makes Japan so compelling? Contrast. Tokyo can feel like the future. Kyoto feels like another century. You can ride one of the world's famous bullet trains. And hours later stand inside a centuries-old temple. You can experience robots, neon skyscrapers and ultra-modern technology. Then walk through a quiet bamboo forest. And Japanese food has become a global phenomenon. Sushi, ramen, tempura, wagyu. But Japan's tourism boom also tells us something bigger. Travelers increasingly want experiences that feel distinctive. They don't simply want another beach resort. They want to experience something that could only happen in Japan. And that may be one reason Japan has become one of the world's fastest rising major tourism destinations. But Europe is about to take over this countdown. At number 9. Germany. Approximately 37.5 million international arrivals were recorded in 2024. Now Germany may not immediately sound like a traditional holiday destination. But look closer. Berlin, Munich, Hamburg, the Rhine Valley, the Black Forest, fairytale castles, Christmas markets, and, of course, Oktoberfest. Germany also benefits enormously from its geography. It sits at the heart of Europe, surrounded by major tourism markets, and connected by an enormous road, rail and air network. So Germany doesn't necessarily have to convince travelers to make a special trip. Millions of travelers are already passing through Europe. And Germany is right in the middle of it. But there's another reason for its strength. Germany combines tourism with business travel. Trade fairs, conferences, corporate travel and major international events add another layer to its visitor economy. And that takes us to number 8. A country with a completely different tourism proposition. The United Kingdom welcomed approximately 41.8 million international visitors in 2024, putting it comfortably inside the global top 10. And much of Britain's tourism power comes from one city: London. Few cities on Earth have such a concentration of globally recognizable attractions. Big Ben, Buckingham Palace, the Tower of London, Westminster, the British Museum, the West End, Premier League football. And then there is something that is difficult to measure: cultural influence. British music, British television, British literature, British royalty, British sports. The United Kingdom has spent centuries exporting its culture to the rest of the world. And tourism often follows cultural familiarity. Someone who grew up watching British movies, reading British literature, or following English football already has an emotional connection to the country before ever boarding a plane. Interestingly, UK international arrivals grew by around 12% in 2024, one of the stronger increases among the major European destinations. But now we cross the Atlantic to a country where tourism operates on an almost continental scale. Mexico. Approximately 45 million international arrivals in 2024. That's more than the population of many countries. And Mexico has something incredibly powerful: proximity to the world's largest tourism market, the United States. Millions of Americans can reach Mexico in just a few hours. But Mexico's success isn't simply about geography. Think about the range: Cancun and the Riviera Maya, Mexico City, Los Cabos, Puerto Vallarta, ancient Mayan sites, Aztec history, colonial cities, Pacific beaches, Caribbean beaches, and one of the world's most recognizable cuisines. Mexican food isn't just popular. It is officially recognized by UNESCO as part of humanity's intangible cultural heritage. And then there is the cultural calendar: Day of the Dead, mariachi, traditional festivals, art, architecture. Mexico offers tourists something extremely valuable: variety without requiring them to leave the country. And that helps explain why it attracts tens of millions of international visitors every year. But now we enter the top 6. And the competition becomes much tougher. Italy doesn't really need an introduction. Rome, Venice, Florence, Milan, Amalfi, Tuscany, Sicily, the Italian lakes, the Dolomites. It's almost as if Italy was designed for tourism. In 2024, approximately 57.8 million international visitors arrived in Italy. And Italy possesses something few countries can match: an extraordinary density of cultural attractions. The Colosseum, the Vatican, Pompeii, Venice, the Uffizi, and countless towns and villages that look like movie sets. But Italy's tourism power goes beyond monuments. Its food: pizza, pasta, gelato, espresso, wine, and regional cuisine that changes dramatically from one part of the country to another. Then there's fashion: Ferrari, Lamborghini, design, luxury. Italy doesn't just offer places to visit. It has created an entire global image of Italian living. And that image is enormously powerful. But at number 5, we find a country whose tourism industry has become a global powerhouse by combining history, beaches, cuisine, and geography. At number 5. Turkey. Approximately 60.6 million international tourist arrivals were recorded in 2024, representing growth of roughly 10.5% over the previous year. And Turkey has perhaps one of the most strategically advantageous tourism locations on Earth. It sits between Europe and Asia. Its largest city, Istanbul, literally spans 2 continents. But geography is only part of the story. Turkey has ancient Roman and Greek heritage, Ottoman history, Mediterranean beaches, Aegean resorts, Cappadocia, hot air balloons, Istanbul's mosques and bazaars, and an enormous culinary tradition. Then there is Antalya. For millions of European and Middle Eastern travelers, Antalya has become synonymous with resort holidays. Turkey has also benefited from competitive pricing compared with many Western European destinations. The result? A tourism proposition that can appeal to luxury travelers, families, history enthusiasts, beach tourists, and budget-conscious travelers. All at the same time. And now, we cross the 60 million mark. But the next country has something Turkey doesn't. The world's most famous theme parks, one of the world's biggest cities, and a tourism industry spread across an entire continent-sized nation. China. China's National Immigration Administration recorded approximately 64.9 million entries by foreign nationals in 2024, an increase of around 82.9% from 2023. More than 20 million of those entries were made under visa-free arrangements. That puts China firmly among the world's tourism giants. But there is a technical difference. This 64.9 million figure represents foreign national entry trips, rather than a perfectly identical UN tourism, international tourist arrivals measure. So don't compare this number to the others, as if every statistic were generated using exactly the same methodology. Still, the scale is extraordinary. And China's tourism potential is enormous. The Great Wall, Beijing, Shanghai, Lebanon, the Terracotta Army, the Forbidden City, Guilin, Zhangjiajie, Tibet, and one of the world's oldest continuous civilizations. China also has something most countries simply cannot replicate: scale. A visitor can spend weeks traveling through China and still experience only a fraction of it. And as visa-free access expands and international air connectivity continues to recover, China's role in global tourism could become even more significant. But if China is number 4, Who sits above it? At number 3. The United States. Approximately 72.4 million international tourist arrivals were recorded in 2024. And here's where things get really interesting. The United States isn't simply one destination. It's practically an entire continent of tourism experiences. New York, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Miami, San Francisco, Orlando, Hawaii, the Grand Canyon, Yellowstone, Alaska, California's coastline. And that's before we even talk about American entertainment. Hollywood, Disney, Broadway, NBA, NFL, major music festivals, shopping, business travel. The United States also dominates the global tourism economy financially. UN tourism data places the United States as the world's largest destination for international tourism receipts, with roughly $215 billion in tourism receipts in 2024. So here's the fascinating contrast. France receives more tourists. But the United States makes substantially more money from international tourism. That tells us something important. Tourist numbers and tourism revenue are not the same thing. A country can attract fewer visitors, but earn much more from each one. And now only 2 countries remain. One is famous for art, architecture, beaches and food. The other has arguably become the world's ultimate tourism brand. At number 2. Spain. And the gap between Spain and most of the world is enormous. Spain welcomed approximately 93.8 million international tourists in 2024, an increase of around 10% from the previous year. Almost 94 million visitors. Think about that. That's more than the population of Germany. And what are all these people coming to see? Barcelona, Madrid, Seville, Valencia, the Costa del Sol, the Balearic Islands, the Canary Islands, and some of Europe's most famous beaches. But Spain's real secret is the combination: warm weather, European infrastructure, world-class cities, beaches, history, nightlife, architecture, football, and food. Tapas, paella, jamón, Spanish wine. Spain also benefits enormously from Europe's integrated travel market. Millions of European travelers can reach Spain by road, rail or short-haul flight. But Spain's success comes with a downside. Some destinations have become so popular that over-tourism has become a major political and social issue. Barcelona, Mallorca and other destinations have faced increasing pressure from visitor numbers, housing costs and overcrowding. And that leads to an important question. If nearly 94 million people visit Spain, who can possibly attract even more? The answer is the country that has topped this ranking for years. Number 1. France. In 2024, France welcomed approximately 102 million international tourist arrivals. That's more than 100 million. And it wasn't particularly close. France remained the world's most visited country, ahead of Spain and the United States. So why France? Start with Paris. The Eiffel Tower, the Louvre, Notre Dame, the Champs-Élysées, Versailles. But France is far more than Paris. The French Riviera, the Alps, Bordeaux, Provence, Normandy, Loire Valley castles, Mont Saint-Michel, and countless villages and wine regions. Then comes food. French cuisine has influenced professional cooking around the world. And wine tourism adds another dimension. But France has another enormous advantage. Location. It sits at the center of one of the world's most heavily traveled regions. Millions of tourists visiting Europe can reach France by high-speed rail, road, air, or even ferry. And France has something else that is almost impossible to manufacture. Global cultural prestige. Fashion. Luxury. Art. Architecture. Cuisine. History. Romance. Even the idea of Paris itself has become a global cultural product. And perhaps that's the biggest lesson from this entire ranking. The world's most visited countries don't rely on a single attraction. They build an ecosystem. But here's the question. If you could choose just one of these 12 countries for your next trip, which one would it be? Let me know your choice in the comments. And if you enjoyed this journey around the world's most visited countries, subscribe. Because there are still nearly 200 countries left to explore. And some of the most surprising tourism stories are hiding far outside this top 12.